The rain had already begun by the time Leora stepped off the drop pod ramp and into the waiting jungle. It wasn't the kind of rain that drenched you instantly or gave warning with thunderclaps. No, this rain misted sideways, subtle and strange, clinging like breath to her skin, as if the forest itself exhaled through her pores. She paused at the threshold, boots sinking into loamy soil. Behind her, the metallic whir of the drop pod's engine cooled, a mechanical sigh that reminded her of what she'd left behind: data cores, translation simulators, sanitized lecture rooms in orbit stations named after dead philosophers. Ahead of her, canopy shadows, the sound of water dripping in rhythmic patterns, and the unnerving sensation that something ancient had just noticed her rival. "You sure you want to do this alone?" came the voice behind her. Leora turned. Van stood, leaning against a tree, half his face hidden under a weather-beaten hood. A plasma pistol holster sat low on his hip, worn and cracked from use. His other hand clutched a survival pack over one shoulder. There were marks along his jawline, faint scars just visible in the soft light. Not from war, from something more personal, something close. "You said this part of the jungle repels machines," she replied. "Figured I should respect the rules." Van gave a slight nod. "Smart, but the jungle makes its own rules. Best we walk in together." She didn't argue. Not because she needed protection, she'd handled worse terrain. Solo on linguist expeditions in a decaying moons, but because there was something in Van's tone that suggested he knew this place too well. They moved in silence, weaving through moss-laced trees, the mist thickening until their shadows grew long and strange. Vines curled like fingers across broken stone pillars. Leora brushed one and felt it pulse faintly, like a heartbeat. "This entire place used to be a city," Van said quietly. "Not just ruins. Alive. Singing. Singing." He touched a vine gently. The roots carried vibrations, resonant. Language. They say the trees shared thoughts. Leora tilted her head. "My records said the native dialects here were never fully decoded. Just fragments, prayer-like stanzas, repetition of sound and symbol. I always thought the jungle was speaking in metaphor." Van didn't smile, but his voice turned softer. "Maybe it still is." They camped near a cracked statue, the face long since worn to a blank oval. Leora unrolled her tarp, the synthetic fabric shimmering as it repelled the forest mist. Ven didn't sleep. Or if he did so with his back to a tree, blade unsheathed and resting across his knees. Leora watched him from the edge of sleep, curiosity gnawing through her usual caution. "Why did you come back here?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Because the forest called me," she scoffed. "That's not an answer." Van shifted, and for a moment, Leora saw a flash of vulnerability beneath the survivalist exterior. "When I was a kid, my family lived near the outer edge of the Green Line. One day, I wandered too deep, got lost. The search drones couldn't find me, but I wasn't alone. Something in the forest guided me back. It whispered my name." Leora sat up slowly. "That kind of memory stays with a person." Van finally looked at her, in the firelight. His eyes weren't cold, they were haunted. "I didn't remember it until the forest whispered again. Last week, in my dreams. The next day, the jungle began to change. The moss underfoot thickened into spongy carpets. Ferns bloomed with iridescent veins that shimmered in Leora's peripheral vision, but faded when she looked directly at them. They passed beneath a massive archway carved from root and stone. As soon as they crossed, Leora stumbled. A voice, "Noah." Note. Inside her head. She blinked. Van turned, catching her by the elbow. "What did you hear?" he asked. Not words, a tone, resonant, familiar, like a memory. Van's expression tightened. "That's how it begins." "What begins?" "Recognition. The forest remembering you." That night, the whispers grew bolder. Leora heard her name. Not just once, dozens of times. Layered and echoed in different tones, like a chorus building around her. She woke to find herself standing in a grove she didn't remember walking to, barefoot. Palms pressed to the bark of a weeping tree. Van found her there. "You followed it," he said. Not angry, not surprised. "I think it showed me something." She whispered. "What?" She turned to him, shivering. "A place, with roots curled around glass, and light trapped inside like memories. But not mine." He stepped closer. They are offering you pieces. The forest trusts you, Leora. Swallowed. Why me? Vin hesitated. Because your voice fits. Because your heart still listens. Because you're not here to take. You came to understand. Leora looked up at him, eyes wide in the half-light. You knew this would happen. He didn't deny it. She stepped away from the tree, breath catching in her throat. The connection between them had shifted. Not just allies, not just explorers. Something more delicate had rooted between them. Something neither of them had words for yet. The grove gave way to a clearing the next day, where a crystalline formation rose like a fractured temple. Roots from the trees above connected to its spires. Light pulsed within, slow and rhythmic. Like breathing, Vin walked slowly to its base. This is it, the core, the heart of the jungle. Leora approached. The air shimmered, words flared across. The crystal's surface, symbols she knew from ancient texts. But now, they weren't just symbols. She felt them. It's translating for me, she said, awed. It's learning how I think. Vin watched her carefully. You can ask it something. She pressed her fingers to the glass. Why did you call me? The answer wasn't a sentence. It was a feeling. Loneliness. Liora staggered back, breath catching. Ven caught her. It remembers when it had voices to talk to, minds to connect with. It's been alone for a long time. Leora looked up at him. Her hand found his. So have I, she said. Their fingers tightened. That night, they didn't sleep apart. The jungle around them grew silent, as if holding its breath. Leora and Vin sat beneath the whispering canopy, backs against each other. The warmth of their closeness more grounding than any fire. This place changes people, she said softly. Vin tilted his head, brushing her temple. Or maybe it just reminds them who they are. She turned. Their lips met like roots finding soil, not rushed, not urgent, just real. And above them, the vines swayed, whispering their names. The vines pulled back when she approached delicately, as if recognizing her scent. Kira crouched, brushing her fingers over the moss-covered stone. The surface throbbed faintly, not unlike a slow heartbeat. Still alive, she whispered. A breeze swept through the lower canopy, stirring leaves that shimmered faintly with bioluminescence. The jungle down here never slept. It pulsed and hummed, fed by rhythms no one outside had ever measured. But she didn't need instruments to understand it. She could feel it in her bones. Kira had always been different. The veins on her arms glowed faint green in the dark, mirroring the photosynthetic strands that twined under her skin. The forest had claimed her long ago, first with whispers, then with gifts, and she had never left. But now, she wasn't alone in its depths. Footsteps echoed from the narrow stone passage behind her, soft, cautious, too rhythmic for any animal. Kira didn't look up. She didn't need to. You're not very good at sneaking, outsider. A man emerged from the shadows, tall, dust-coated, with a scanner dangling from his belt and nervous energy in his fingers. Didn't mean to sneak, just didn't know if you'd shoot first. Depends who's asking, Kira said, finally turning. And what you're doing this deep in the Trinara cradle? He held up both hands. I'm not with the authority, I swear. Name's Zeo. Just a freelance researcher. She narrowed her eyes. Most freelancers don't carry government-grade resonance trackers. Zeo gave a lopsided grin. Okay, semi-freelance. But I'm not here to map the jungle for conquest. I'm here because this forest hums like a living being, and I think it's trying to communicate. Kira rose slowly, brushing dirt from her knees. Her hair fell around her shoulders like woven vines, wild and sun-bleached. She tilted her head. You think it wants to be understood? I think it's more intelligent than anyone realizes, Zeo said. And it's not the plants or the animals, it's something below. Kira's smile was faint, sad. You don't even realize how close you are. He blinked. Wait, so it's real, the neural fungal web, the one that reacts to emotion. She finished. It listens when we speak with our hearts, not our mouths. Zeo stared. That's not in any of the logs, because those who hear it never return, she said, or they become part of it. He looked around, the reality of the place sinking in. The air itself seemed thicker here, moist with breath that didn't quite belong. The canopy filtered sunlight into golden shafts, but beneath it, the jungle glowed on its own terms, flowers, turned to face them though there was no sun, leaves curled toward their steps. You're not afraid, he said. I was, she admitted, the first time I heard the song beneath the roots. I thought I was losing my mind. And now, I realize it was calling me home. Zeo took a careful step forward, drawn despite himself. And you can teach me to hear it? She studied him. Not the fear in his stance or the tension in his jaw, but the sadness in his chest. He carried it like an anger. Maybe, if you listen. They moved through the undergrowth like whispers. Themselves, Kira led the way, barefoot, stepping across moss stones without disturbing a single frond. Zeo followed, trying not to crush the glowing fungi with his boots. Where are we going? He asked. Down, she said, to the place where the forest sings. It wasn't a metaphor. After another hour of descent, the jungle opened into a hollow. Great root systems spiraled downward into a chasm aglow with golden light. Vines hung like chandeliers over the opening, and the earth trembled gently beneath their feet. At the edge of the abyss, Kira knelt. This is where it speaks clearest. Zeo crouched beside her, eyes wide. It's beautiful. What is it? She smiled faintly. The oldest part of Trinara, a fungal cathedral. The neural song lives in that web. He took out his recorder. Don't use machines, she said gently. They don't hear the right way. He paused, then slowly tucked the device away. So how do you hear it? Kira pressed her hand to the moss beside the root's edge. Breathe. Close your eyes. Think not with your head, but your feelings. Let them rise. Zeo hesitated, but something about her calm presence made him obey. Eyes shut, breath slow. He let go of logic, let go of expectation, and then he felt it. A faint pressure in his chest, like the echo of a distant note. Then another, a harmony forming. His eyes opened in awe. Is that me? Kira nodded. It responds to those who offer it truth. Zeo's breath shook. Then it knows I'm broken. It does, she said softly. But it also knows how to sing you whole. They stayed in the hollow that night. Kira built a fireless nest of warm-spored moss. The air buzzed faintly round them, like a low lullaby. Zeo sat, knees drawn to his chest, watching her with hesitant wonder. You really live here? I was born outside, she said, but I never belonged. When I found this place, I understood why. Because you're like it. She looked up. Because I am it. Or becoming it. Slowly, he reached toward her, then stopped. Are you dying? Kira shook her head. Changing. Becoming something new. This jungle doesn't kill, it evolves. If you stay long enough, you stop being visitor and start being part of the song. Zeo's voice was quiet. And what if I don't want to lose myself? She met his eyes. Then you won't. But you might lose the parts that never belonged to you. They sat in silence. Finally, Zeo asked, Why are you helping me? Kira hesitated. Then, because I heard your note the moment you stepped into the cradle. It matched mine. He blinked. You mean the forest heard it? I mean I did. A pause. Oh. Their eyes locked. There was nothing but soft wind, glowing vines, and heartbeats between them. Days passed. Zeo stayed. And slowly, he changed. He stopped using the scanner. He stopped cataloging. He started listening. And every day, the jungle revealed more floating spores that danced to laughter, moth birds that mimicked whispered secrets, a pond that rippled in reply to dreams. And Kira, she stayed close, guiding him with a presence gentler than moonlight. When they laughed, the trees echoed. When they held hands, the vines bowed. When he kissed her finally, tenderly, beneath a bloom that opened just for them, the forest hummed. The fungal song grew stronger each day. Zeo felt himself unraveling and rebuilding. The man who had come seeking proof was gone. What remained was someone lighter, braver. And in love. But all songs reach a dissonance on the fifth day. While gathering light fruit, Kira stopped. Her pupils narrowed. Do you feel that? Zeo paused. What? A vibration sharp, unnatural, discordant. Then came the smell. Smoke. They climbed the ridge, and what they saw below made Zeo's blood freeze. A clearing. Burnt, charred stumps were ancient. Trees had stood. Metal towers. Survey drones. Authority banners staked into the soil. Kira's face went pale. No. Zao shook his head. How did they my spores? She whispered. They must have tracked them. Sampled me without knowing. The jungle shuddered. Around them, the fungal hum faltered. Pain pulsed through the roots. They're killing it, Zao said. They're severing the web. We have to stop them. They have guns. Kira turned to him, green veins glowing brighter. So does the forest. That night, the jungle fought back. Zao and Kira didn't need words. The forest guided their steps. Vines snared equipment. Spores clogged engines. Trees moved not fast, but deliberately, repositioning in impossible ways. Zao led them to the central tower. Kira touched the roots beneath it and the song surged. A final harmony. The fungi rose like smoke. Machines blinked out. Soldiers screamed and fled. And when it was over, the jungle sighed. Peace returned. But Kira did not. Zao found her lying among the roots, eyes closed, breath slow. She smiled faintly. I sang it deeply. He knelt beside her, hands trembling. No, don't leave. I'm not leaving, she whispered. I'm becoming. This is my home now. All of me. He kissed her forehead. Then I'll stay too. She opened her eyes, light swirling in her irises. Then you'll change. He held her hand. Then change me. Years later, travelers who wandered too deep into Trinara sometimes heard music, strange, beautiful music that echoed in their bones. And if they were very quiet, they'd hear laughter soft, shared and in love. The forest remembered. The forest sang. And beneath the roots, the harmony continued. The jungle didn't show up on official star maps anymore. That it was erased, classified, redacted, and whispered about only in hushed voices among exocartographers and black site researchers. But Nell wasn't here on a government mission. She came, alone with a handheld scanner, half a dozen encoded relics, and a gut instinct that something ancient lived beneath the forest's surface. She didn't expect him. The first time she saw him, he stood motionless in a broken temple wall, half silhouetted by vines and twilight. Her drone caught him in a blurred frame. When she rewound the footage, he was gone. No heat signature, no readings, just a flicker of presence. She returned to that site 3 nights in a row. Each time, her instruments failed. Batteries drained, data corrupted, yet the air grew warmer near the temple. Her skin tingled as if something unseen passed nearby. Then, on the 4th night, he spoke. I was beginning to wonder if you were ever going to stop watching me and say something. Nell spun, pulse racing. He stood just a few meters away, barefoot in the moss, his voice carrying like a wind woven through trees. His eyes glowed faintly with green firelight from the fungal growths above. I didn't know you were real, she said. He smiled gently. Most people still don't. His name was Thal, and he didn't tell her at first. He only appeared near the moss balcony on the temple's edge, as if that was where he lived, or perhaps where he was permitted to exist. She asked what he was. He said, simply, what's left. But when he looked at her, something stirred behind those eyes. Sadness, yes, but also memory, recognition, as if her presence reminded him of something long buried. She returned the next day, and the day after that. And by the 6th, they were talking like old acquaintances. Though neither could explain why, he told her stories about the temple, of a people who once sang to the vines and lived symbiotically with the forest's song. How their language wasn't made of words, but harmony's frequencies that could soothe throats, tame fire, or guide lost travelers. She told him about the world beyond, orbit stations that grew colder each year, colonies where people slept beside wires instead of warmth, a culture that measured everything in numbers, but had forgotten how to feel. I think I left, she admitted, because I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. And you came here to remember. I don't know, she said. Maybe I came hoping something would recognize me. He looked at her then, long and deep. I do, he said softly. He never touched her, not at first. It wasn't distance or fear. It was reverence. Thalen moved like someone aware he existed on borrowed time. Sometimes he faded in mid-sentence, his outline flickering as though the vines withdrew their permission for him to remain. Are you a ghost? She asked, once after watching his form blur and reassemble. No, he said. I'm what the forest remembers. He had died, Long ago his physical body decayed and devoured by the roots beneath the temple. But his soul, his pattern, had been preserved, not by magic, not by science either. Something older. Consciousness isn't just neural, he explained. It's rhythm, it's resonance. If the forest sings you long enough, it learns how to be you. Nell didn't understand it fully, but she felt it. Each time he came back clearer, stronger, as if the forest song now carried a new note. Hers. She kissed him under the bloom of a vine flower that only opened at moonfall. It wasn't planned, it wasn't careful. They had spent the evening laughing. He told her about the time he tried to teach a talking bird how to curse. She shared how her scanner once misread moss as intelligent life and got her temporarily promoted to Xenolinguistics division. Their laughter filled the ruins, soft and glowing, when the petals bloomed, showering them with faint bioluminescent dust. Fallon looked at her not like a memory, but like a future. I don't know what I am anymore, he whispered. You're enough, she said. And then their lips met, slow and trembling, like the first breath after a long sleep. But the forest is not a place that allows joy to last untouched. The authority had followed her signal. One morning, Nell awoke to static on her receiver and distant drone hums slicing through the mist. They found me, she whispered. Thal and stood by the temple arch, light dimming around him. Then you have to leave. No, they won't just take you, he said. They'll dissect this place, tear out the roots until there's nothing left to remember me. Then come with me. He shook his head. I'm not portable. I'm here now, bound by memory, by this song. She clenched her fists. There has to be a way. He stepped forward, taking her hand in his. His touch was firmer now, warmer. There is, but it comes at a cost. What cost? You leave, you survive, you remember, and I stay. I hold the memory long enough for it to become legend again. No, she whispered, tears forming. I just found you. He leaned his forehead to hers, and that's why I can let go. They kissed one last time, beneath the vines that hummed with sorrow. Nell ran, guided by the roots, her body light and aching. Behind her, the temple began to collapse, not violently, but in surrender. The forest folded around it like a protective shell, swallowing light, sound, and history. The authority never found what they came for, but Nell never forgot. Years passed. Nell published no papers. She spoke no secrets. But sometimes at night, she sang, not in human words, but in the harmony she had learned among the ruins. And deep in the heart of an unnamed jungle, a new vine grew, twisted and golden. And when the wind passed through it just right, it sang with her voice. And beneath it, the ghost in the vines smiled. The forest had gone quiet, not the peaceful hush of dusk, but the kind of silence that made the skin crawl, dense, breathless, full of unseen eyes. Mirelle paused at the edge of the clearing, one foot lifted mid-step, heart beating loudly in her chest. The vines here grew in twisted, spiraling arcs, forming patterns that seemed almost deliberate, not random, not natural, like language. The wind didn't move them, stillness all around. She exhaled slowly and stepped into the glade. She'd come alone, fleeing the smoldering ruin of her starfaring clan's last camp. Their flame-winged sails were now ash on the wind, scattered by the colonists who declared their ancestral world uninhabited. Mirelle had run, carrying nothing but an ancient song shard passed from her grandmother, a memory woven in crystal. And it had brought her here. The jungle had whispered. Now it waited. She set up her shelter in the outer rim of the glade, careful not to disturb the curling roots or the odd blossom formations coiled like closed hands. Around pale cores, one, taller than her, shimmered faintly. The bloom. It hadn't opened in years, and yet it called to her. Mirelle wasn't used to stillness. Her people had danced under 6 moons and lived in constant motion. This jungle demanded stillness. Listening, surrender. So she tried. She listened to the rustling of unseen creatures in the branches, to the faint tremor in the air that reminded her of harp strings. Each day, she knelt near the bloom, not touching, just present. She sang softly old lullabies, half-forgotten verses, the words braided in the fluid syntax of her people. Sometimes, the bloom shimmered in response. Other times, it pulsed like a second heartbeat. She began to dream. In her dreams, she stood. In a mirrored glade, surrounded by ghostly silhouettes made of leaves and light. One among them walked forward, a man, cloaked in vines, eyes full of knowing sadness. He never spoke, but he always reached toward her on the seventh day, when she awoke and stepped into the glade. He was real. He didn't come from the jungle like a creature or approach like a man. He was simply there, standing with the patience of someone who'd been waiting too long to remember impatience. Tall, barefoot, wrapped in moss-dyed cloth that fluttered slightly despite the still air. She reached for her belt knife out of reflex, but he raised a hand not to stop her, but to calm. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "I've waited too long to meet another who can hear her." Mirel blinked. Her. He nodded toward the bloom. "She's singing. You hear it, don't you?" I thought it was just wind." "It's memory," he said. "Her memory." He stepped closer. "My name is Lan." They didn't speak much after that, at least, not in the usual way. Lan had a stillness to him that reminded her of old stones, of places that had witnessed too much to rush. But he stayed, near the edge of the glade, watching the bloom like a priest watching a flame. "You're not afraid of it?" Mirel asked one morning. Lan shook his head. "I was, at first. But fear fades when love remains." She didn't ask what he meant. Not yet. On the 10th day, the bloom moved. Just slightly, one of its outer petals quivered, loosened, then settled back. Lan watched it, lips parted in awe. "It's starting." Mirel stepped beside him. "What's inside?" Lan paused. "A memory that doesn't want to die. A promise that hasn't been fulfilled." "That's poetic," she said. He looked at her. It was a love. Over the next nights, she pieced together his story. Lan had come to the jungle cycles ago, when he was still young and furious. He'd been a surveyor for a forgotten empire, assigned to classify the glade for exploitation. But something had stopped him. Not data, not threat. A woman. She wasn't human, he said. Not exactly. But she spoke to the vines, and the vines spoke back. And somewhere in the middle of trying to understand her, I forgot I wasn't supposed to love her. "And what happened?" "The bloom opened once before," he said, voice shaking. "And she stepped into it." Mirel swallowed. "Why?" "To save the song. To become it." He looked at her then. "You sing in the old ways. That's why she stirred." That night, the bloom opened further. One petal peeled outward, revealing an inner spiral of veined bioluminescent filaments. At the center, something glowed, a core of pulsing crystal. Lan fell to his knees. She remembers. Mirel couldn't sleep. The bloom's hum filled her head. It wasn't words. It was memory. She felt things that weren't hers, love spoken. Beneath stormlight, tears shed in secret groves, a final kiss beneath trembling vines. At dawn, she found Lan sitting beside the bloom, shoulders slumped. "You loved her." He nodded. "I still do. And yet, you're here." She became something greater. I stayed to remember that she once had a name. Mirel knelt beside him. "And what if it's time to let the memory become a seed?" He looked at her, eyes red but soft. "Then maybe I don't have to remember alone." It wasn't planned. It wasn't sudden. But sometime between the blooming of the 5th petal and the shift in the wind, Lan took her hand. His skin was warm, real, and when she didn't pull away, he kissed her, slow and quiet. "I don't expect you to become what she was," he whispered. "And I don't need you to compare me," Mirel said. They slept beside the bloom that night, not as replacements, but as survivors finally ready to plant something new. When the bloom fully opened, the glade filled with a scent like rain on burned stone. The petals had fallen back, revealing a circular pool of light at its core. A bridge. Lan trembled. "She left through there," he said. "Maybe she left it for you to follow." He looked at her. "Will you come with me?" Mirel smiled. "Only if it leads somewhere worth singing about." And together, their hands entwined, they stepped into the bloom, into the silence that comes before the first note of a new song.